We do have Tim Gardner on the line. Tim, first off, thank you very much for taking some time out of your day. And how are things going for you, and how crazy is March Madness getting for you?
Yeah, it's going well. Just trying to keep track of all of these games and keep an eye on the bubble and which teams are trying to make a push to get into the field of 68.
Northwestern starts off almost maybe changing the way things were going. A victory over Ohio State doesn't look like it's going to happen now, but if Northwestern were to win that, does that change things up quite a bit?
On the bubble, not so much. I mean, in terms of Ohio State's look at an overall number one seed, that could come into question if Kansas were to go on to win the Big 12 championship. But in terms of the bubble, Northwestern can't do enough to get in unless they go on and win the Big 10.
You talk about Ohio State getting the number one overall seed, and then you mentioned Kansas there with number 2 if they win the Big 12. With Pitt losing yesterday in the Big East Conference, does that open the door for maybe a Notre Dame to jump up there for a 1 seed, or the winner of the ACC Conference, whether it's ACC tournament, whether it's Duke or North Carolina, or is Pitt pretty well locked into a 1 seed?
They would have been they won 1 game there in the Big East tournament, but by losing so early and giving Duke, North Carolina, and Notre Dame a chance to get some quality wins while Pitt's sitting on the side just watching, certainly the Panthers are now a little bit in danger. I think it's going to be hard for North Carolina to make that push, even if they were to get to the ACC title. I think Pitt's overall body of work is still significantly better than what the Tar Heels offer. But if Notre Dame can get on and win the Big East tournament, I would not doubt that they jump up to the 1 line. I don't know if they would take Pitt's spot because it depends on what Duke does. But if Duke can win the ACC and Notre Dame wins the Big East, it's very possible that Pitt could slide down to that 5th spot and a number 2 seed.
Tim, any chance San Diego State wins out and has a shot at maybe a number 1 seed, or is that pretty much gone away?
Very slim chance. I think they would need Notre Dame to lose, in the Big East semis. They would need Duke to lose, maybe, to Maryland. There's a slim chance, but they would need a lot to happen, and I wouldn't expect that to come to fruition.
You mentioned Maryland. Any shot of them making the tournament if they don't win the ACC championship, or do they have to win that to make the tourney?
I think they have to win it. Unfortunately, they had a bunch of top 50 games early in the season against Pitt, against Temple, Villanova, where they had the lead and they had a chance to win, but ultimately did not. So as they entered the ACC tournament, they were 0-9 against the top 50, or 1-9 against the top 50 with the win over Florida State. Unfortunately, you get 1 against Duke, maybe that gives you 2. But then if you lose in the championship game, it's not going to, I don't think that'll be enough. The Terps probably have to, make that run and get the automatic bid if they hope to go dancing.
Looking at, the rest of these conference tournaments winding down, what are the teams that you are looking at, the most carefully, for those last couple spots on the bubble? Is it a team like Michigan State? Has Colorado done enough to earn a spot from the Big 12? Or even a team like a Richmond in the A-10, one of those mid-major bubbles. What teams interest you most, or are you keeping your eye on?
Colorado, definitely. Their game against Kansas will tell us a lot. Right now I have Colorado in the field. What I don't know is if they get blown out by Kansas, then how far does that knock them back? The thing going against the Buffaloes is the non-conference strength of schedule. It's ranked somewhere in the area of 320th in the country. And history has shown that the selection committee frowns upon that relatively. Penn State a few years ago had 6 top 50 wins, 3 of which were in the top 25, but had a non-conference schedule outside of 300, and they were not included in the field. The only reason I have Colorado in now is because we have those 3 extra spots with the expanded NCAA tournament. So it's interesting to see what they do. Colorado State, I was watching until they lost to New Mexico, so they fall off the bubble. I think Richmond is pretty safe. It would be smart for them not to lose to Rhode Island in the first round of the A-10 tournament there. Other teams, you mentioned Michigan State. I think the win over Iowa helped them. I just think they can't afford a blowout loss like Colorado to Purdue in the Big Ten tournament. After that, it's just a jumbled mess. The bubble is an interesting creature this year. A lot of resumes look eerily similar, and they look similar in the fact that they're not very good. So We'll see how Boston College and Clemson do as well, and what Virginia Tech can do. I think as we get through the weekend, though, you'll get some teams that earn those signature wins and earn the spots in the field, and not necessarily back into them like we've seen earlier this week.
Yeah, looking at a game that actually just went final a few minutes ago, Dayton just beat number 20 Xavier. Does that? I mean, what does that do for Dayton? I mean, obviously their schedule doesn't look great, but I mean, you get a big win over Xavier. How does that help them maybe in making a run? I understand they probably won't get in unless they win the A-10 tournament, but let's say they do make a run, they win the A-10 tournament. How does that change maybe a team like Colorado you just talked about on the bubble?
Exactly. If you get one of these teams that goes up and steals a bid, of course, the bubble teams are gonna have that much more fight on their hands in order to get into the big dance. The team right now that I have last in the field is Virginia Commonwealth out of the Colonial Athletic Association. Unfortunately, they are done. They lost in their conference final, so they don't have any more opportunities to make an impression and to get any more signature wins. So basically, they're at the mercy of the rest of the bubble. And if a team like Dayton were to sneak up and steal an automatic bid, the teams that we've talked about, VCU, Colorado, Virginia Tech, those could be the teams in danger of sliding out despite not necessarily doing anything wrong.
I mean, you talk about all these extra bubble teams trying to get in, and then you mentioned the 3 extra play-in type games that the NCAA added for the tournament this year. What do you think about those 3 games? Does it dilute the tournament at all? Are you part of the camp that says, as many teams as possible, the better?
I'm definitely not part of the process of thinking that as many teams, the better. I don't mind the way that we have it now. Having done this bubble tracker for USA Today for over, several years now, and seeing the fringe of the bubble each year, like we said earlier, there's always resumes that look nearly identical. Whether you have good road wins, but you might not have a lot of top 50 wins. You might have an under 500 record against the top 100, but your RPI still might be pretty good. So I think what this allows with the first 4 and allowing those last 4 at-large teams to face each other is just what it is. It's a playing game. It's kind of the committee saying, okay, we weren't sure if you were, fully qualified for the NCAA tournament field, but we're going to give you a chance to earn that spot on the court and not by virtue of your resume. I like that idea. What I worry about in an overall sense is that I fear that the NCAA is taking baby steps to bigger tournaments. I like the fact that they're getting more television revenue. I like the fact that all the games will be on TV, but I fear that as you see how popular it gets, that they're going to hold their hands out a little more for maybe a 74-team tournament, or if we get up to 80. And I really don't want that to happen. I think it will dilute the product. I think it'll ruin the NIT in the process, which might not be the worst thing, but if you keep spreading it out and letting everybody in, you're going to end up with a product that will pretty much provide chalk throughout, and that's just something that I'm not too keen on.
You talked about Colonial might have a shot at 3 teams getting in. That would be the same as the Mountain West. That'd be the same as the Pac-10. That'd even be the same as the A-10 or the Atlantic 10. What does that say about, especially the Pac-10 being kind of a major conference, especially in football, what does that say about the Pac-10 compared to the Colonial, which is obviously a smaller conference, that they might be getting the same amount of teams in?